Hi, everyone. This is our special edition podcast. A lot of you guys know that we do have another podcast called Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast where we interview people all about the crazy situations in real estate. Today is not that podcast. Today is a different podcast where we're focusing specifically on the relocation process with a lot of our first responder clients. Just as to preface this from the start, we are not relocations. We do not work for relocations, and we don't work for the RCMP, but many of our clients are RCMP or first responders, and we do handle a lot of their moves. So today, it's myself, Kristy Masaro, and Shelagh Machek.
Hello.
We are a real estate team in the Fraser Valley. We work for Royal LePage, and we wanted to sit down and talk about relocation.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that this will be very helpful for everybody. And the purpose of this podcast is to not only educate members and their families on the relocating process, because it can be a bit stressful, but to also educate other realtors so that they can help service this clientele properly and just think about some things that maybe they haven't considered before. Mm-hmm. We do fundraise for Honor House. We give back to this community a lot. They've been supporting us through the whole time of my career. My husband's a RCMP member and has been for about 15 years now, more than that, but at least 15 years. And Sheila is actually a first responder wife as well. And I'd like to share with you guys to start how Sheila and I actually met each other. How did it go? How'd you get stuck with me, Sheila?
We met online, as
Yeah.
all things do nowadays. So my husband and I, we were stationed up north in a little town called Delaney, and it was finally our turn to transfer out. We'd been up there for 5 years. He put in all the paperwork. We were going back to our home province of BC, and we were going to be first-time home buyers. And we had no idea where to start. And then we're like, oh, I guess we should find a realtor. Maybe that's a good place. And then we posted online. It was in an internal Facebook for spouses. And I said, hey, does anyone know of a good realtor in the Lower Mainland that can handle transfer processes? We have no idea what we're doing. And then I see your name pop up. Here, again. I'm like, oh, okay. So I message you. And I think you respond back, okay, I'll call you in 7 minutes. And I'm showing this to my husband, and he's like, 7 minutes? That's so precise.
It is precise.
He's like, I like this. And then he just looks at his watch. He's like, I'll wait. And then you called 7 minutes later, and immediately he's like, oh, this is perfect. So responsive. Someone who's actually going to walk us through the process. And that's how we found you.
Yeah, so I do that on purpose because I like to make sure that when I'm communicating with people right from the get-go, they know what to expect from me. So if I'm saying something specific, like I'm going to call you in 7 minutes, it's a weird number. It's not 5 minutes. It's not 10 minutes. It's 7 because I want them to know that I'm going to do what I say, like to the T, to the letter.
Yeah.
Because that's a really important thing, especially in real estate. It's the number one biggest complaint that people have about their realtors, that they don't communicate effectively or maybe they don't do what they say they're going to do. So I try to get that out of the way right away. And then I met you guys. We went house hunting.
We did.
We saw a few houses.
And
then you ended up living with me. And I just want to preface this. If any of you are transferring to the Lower Mainland, I don't typically invite my clients to come live with me.
You can't. I'm still there.
This is a very specific situation where she was looking for work while her husband was transferring down.
Yeah. We had found the house. We had bought it. And then because his work transferred, mine would not. So I was starting the little job hunt process as soon as I could.
Yeah, you left the perfect voicemail. Basically, I hired you and you've been stuck with me ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was 7 years ago, guys. So I've been a real estate agent for 10, going on 11 years now. Sheila's been licensed for, God, it's got to be 6 years.
Yeah.
You've been with me for, I keep saying 7, but I think it's longer than that.
I think so.
It might be 8 years or so now. So
they're good times.
Yeah, and we do a lot of RCMP transfers. That's actually our main clientele. So we do have a lot of experience in this zone. And what's cool about it is like I've never moved from the Lower Mainland. I've been born and raised here. My husband's born and raised here. He actually got transferred back at a depot. And there's enough crime in the Lower Mainland to suit a whole career. You're never going to run out, which is kind of cool.
That is true.
Yeah, and the sections are quite big, whether they're federal or municipal, whatever. There's enough policing here that you don't really have to move. You can do a lot of life here before you'd ever.
I went from this town to this next door town.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I've never moved. So when we're talking today with that perspective, I'm just talking to you guys as a real estate agent that's familiar with the process, but I've never actually gone through it myself. That being said, I have bought and sold in the past, so I can empathize with certain aspects of that, especially in the Lower Mainland and one of the hardest markets in Canada. But Sheila's actually done the move quite a few times.
Multiple times with the RCMP transfer process and multiple times without. So both sides.
Yeah. So you've really seen it up front. You know what it's like to be in it. And you definitely know what it's like to be that Mountie couple who gets your paperwork, your documentation, gets on the phone to relocations, and away you go.
Yeah.
So for the purposes of this podcast, we're going to start off talking all about the selling process. Okay. So let's pretend that you are about to transfer and you've finally got that piece of paperwork saying like, hey, you got a job posting. You got the go ahead to start the moving process. Okay. But you haven't quite talked to relocation yet. You're like waiting. You're waiting to talk to relocation.
Are they going to call me this week? Next month? Come on.
Yes. And the question that always pops up online is how long does this take to be contacted by relocation? There doesn't seem to be like a set amount of time.
No.
Like they're not going to call you in 7 minutes.
No.
Yeah.
Definitely not. If
No.
they do, it's an emergency. It's not great.
Yeah, exactly. So we get these couples that call or these people that call that say, hey, I know that I'm moving. I don't know exactly when this relocation call is coming, but what can I do to start preparing myself for the process?
Yeah.
So the cool thing is that there are things that you can do to start getting the ball rolling, okay? There is a myth out there that you have to wait to talk to relocations in order to start that ball. Really, what you can do is you can start shopping for a real estate agent. Now, I know what you're thinking. Relocations has a list, the mythical relocations list.
Does it exist?
I've never seen it. I'm sure it exists. But what is it's a list of realtors that are familiar with the real estate process. And basically what they've done is they've agreed to work for the commission rates that the RCMP pays because they have a different set of commission rate for each province, actually. So in British Columbia, a couple of years ago, it was 3.5%. Then it dropped down to 3.25%. Then it went down to 3% flat, and it just came back up to 3.25.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's making those calls, but 3.25 in the Lower Mainland is a pretty good wage, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a realtor, you do not have to shop on that list. You can just find a realtor that is familiar with the RCMP process and that agrees to work for that wage. And that's an important thing to discuss up front because they're paying the bill, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And when you're selling, that's when the bill comes, okay? That's when the RCMP fees are billed to the seller. They're not for the buyer, okay? So when it comes time to and we're going to get into this, but we're going to talk about the buying process like Shelagh went through. She had to find a realtor that was familiar with the RCMP process, but there was no list.
No.
Yeah, so that's why, because they don't pay, they don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that being said, the most important number to talk about with the realtor that you hire is the cooperating percentage. Yes.
Yeah.
So every area in the Lower Mainland almost has like a different cooperating commission. In Vancouver, it's a little bit higher. In the lower, like the Fraser Valley, Langley, Abbotsford, Maple Ridge, we've got a different amount. It's a little bit lighter out in Chilliwack. It's very important that you offer a competing wage. So the biggest complaint that we get is sometimes there's small communities where the housing prices aren't as high. And that commission paid out by the RCMP doesn't go as far. So we get realtors who maybe list a house and they know that there's a certain percentage that they're going to want to make on the house. So they offer less money to the cooperating agent. Now that's something that we can't do as realtors. We need to make sure that we're offering a proper buyer's realtor's wage so that when somebody brings their buyer to your listing, they know that they're going to be compensated fairly. Shelagh, Medallion, how many homes had to be sold last year in order to be in the top 10% of the Fraser Valley?
I think for individuals, I think it was 9.
9 houses.
Yeah.
So someone had to, in the entire calendar year, only sell 9 houses in order to make the top 10% of the Fraser Valley. That's 5,400 realtors. Only had to sell 9. Okay, so that just give you perspective as to how hard the market was. We want to make sure that realtors, especially if they're living off of the wages that when we had our boom years, maybe their bills have gone up like everybody's has with inflation, interest rates. You know, they got to feed their families. They might have to take on second jobs. There's no shame in that, especially in a hard market. We want to make sure that when they come to your listing, they don't hesitate at all with the amount of money that they would be making if they were to put that deal together.
Yeah, that there's no deterrent.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big conversation that needs to take place up front right away when you are listing your property. So although the RCMP puts a lot of focus on making sure that the listing agent will bite off that amount, really there should almost be like a set standard for the buyer's commission,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
And you should have that conversation before you sign the documents. It's one of the things you can do ahead of time.
Yes. So have this conversation ahead of time. Don't sign anything yet. The second thing you can do is you can prepare for the sale physically.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to get into the safety chat in a minute. But Sheila, typical things to get ready. You sold your house lots. What did you have to do?
Declutter.
You sound like you have a lot of clutter, Sheila.
Yeah. I got a collection of mugs like you've never seen before, and they move with me. I'll get rid of 5, get 10 more. It's fine. It's a thing. But declutter, tidying things up, removing things, just making it as kind of close to picture perfect as you can before you actually take the photos.
Yeah, because ultimately the first showing is always online. So we make sure that we have a really, really dialed in getting photo ready checklist. And this is what a realtor should be providing for you. They should be making sure that they are telling you subliminal messages in your pictures that show that the home offers more. They should show you things that deter people in photos. Simple ones are like dog dishes out, garbage cans out, subliminal messaging like full toilet paper rolls. These are just some of the things that we want to make sure we set our clients up for with success.
Yeah.
Because like you said, the first showing is online. Everybody looks at MLS pictures online.
Yeah.
There's some wild stuff out there.
Wild.
Yes. So we want to make sure that our photos are dialed in 100%. So you got to make sure you start preparing right away with your home, with the help of your realtor. If you need trades like painting or carpet cleaning or anything like that, this is the professional that can help you get the ball rolling before you even talk to relocation. So there's just one of those other things that you can do. The other thing you can do is you can learn about the market. Got to learn about the market. Have to know what's going on in the market. Now, Sheila, when she was coming down for her purchase, and we'll get into this when we talk about the buying side, but things were jumping every single week.
Yeah. We had, because transfers can sometimes get delayed depending on final signatures and everything. So we were ready to go, but our process got delayed, I think, by almost 3 months. And in that time in 2017, this market was taking off, especially for detached houses.
Totally. So same thing if you're selling. So if you're going into a declining market, the longer that relocation process takes, the markets can go down. You can actually lose equity in your home. And you hope that you never go past that amount where you purchased, of course. You don't want to go into financial hardship selling your house for the job. But some people do. That's just the reality of it. We try to stay away from that as much as possible. So if you have an opportunity to get your home ready for sale, watch the market, make sure you understand the comparables that are around you, rely on that realtor to diagnose your property, and be realistic about your pricing. And we'll talk a little bit about that, about what that looks like when people are not realistic about their pricing, because show me a homeowner that doesn't want, you know, the most amount of money for their home.
And how it impacts your timeline.
Of course. Yes, absolutely. Everybody thinks their home is worth more than their neighbors. And in a declining market, we have to have those conversations that are a little bit harder. But it is what it is. And then, of course, the last piece of the pie there while you're waiting to list your home for sales, you can actually read the documents that you're going to be signing with your realtor. There's disclosure forms. Your agent can go to the city and pull permits. They can pull a site survey. They can pull your title. You're going to need that for relocations anyway. And we want to make sure that all the documents are ready to go, because your real estate agent should be creating a direct path from your listing to the buyer and the buyer to your listing. It is a 2-part process. We're there not only to facilitate and get that buyer into the door as a marketing machine, but we also want to make sure that we're going to help them create the path to signing the final sale documents for your home.
Yeah, especially for strata properties too. You can order those documents ahead of time because they can take weeks to come in. And the last thing you want to do is be ready to go and you put your house up for sale and someone wants to buy it, but you're like, oh, I don't have the documents you need to purchase this for 2 weeks. Sorry.
Yeah. And it's just not acceptable.
No.
Basically.
Yeah.
That would never fly, especially in the Lower Mainland.
No.
That cannot happen. So there are things you can do before you even list the house for sale. Those are all things you can do. You can talk to a realtor, but if you want to follow the letter to the law, especially, do not sign anything. You can fill out stuff, but don't sign and don't give the final signature. Things like property disclosure statements, material latent defect statements, anything like that, you can always get it ready. But I wouldn't give the final signature on anything until 100% when your house is about to hit the market.
Yeah.
And there are things that have to occur before this happens. So, for example, you got to talk to relocations, and they might require an appraisal on your property. Okay. So relocations wants to make sure that they understand the value of your house by an independent party. So basically, you call an appraisal company that's local and they come out and they have a look at your home. Everybody thinks that they have to have your house perfect for this. They don't care. They don't care if you're in your pajamas. They don't care if your dishes are done.
Yeah.
They care about how many windows, doors, rooms, if your roof is okay.
Yeah.
Basically what your house looks like with regards to that.
It's not a home inspection. It's a in, out, couple pictures, gone.
Yeah, and they're not buying your house. They do not care if you're at home in your pajamas, 100%. But you do have to have this appraisal because the RCMP wants to make sure that if you, for some reason, claim that you lost money on your house, they would want somebody to verify that. And they also want to make sure that you're going to take the selling process seriously. So in the event that you decided, maybe I don't want to go to DIBBLEE. I'm just throwing DIBBLEE out there. I've never gone anywhere. I'm from the Lower Mainland. I'm probably staying here. But say you didn't want to go there, and you decided, hey, I know my house is only worth 1.6. I'm going to list it at 1.8 and try to delay my sale. Maybe they'll give up on me, and I don't have to go there anymore. Okay, so it's things like that. They want to make sure that there is an independent party that looks at it objectively.
Yeah,
which is an important thing. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what happens after that meeting. So they hire an appraisal company. They're going to supply a diagnosis as to what the house is worth. And they're going to give an assessment of the number. But you're also going to have your real estate agent's assessment of the number. And keep in mind, guys, agents who are going to guess what your house is worth, that's not necessarily the direction you want to go. You want to hire somebody who shows you what the market is doing. Okay, they have to prove to you why your house is what it's worth.
Yeah, give context to what they're showing for a value.
Lots of context. And we do this. We have all the forms, and there's something called an RCMP market report.
Yeah.
And we basically grab 3 active comparables if they exist, 3 active solds if they exist. We talk about how many homes are around the location, what the economics of the area are.
Yeah.
So if there's an influx of listings, it might be a buyer's market. If it's an influx of buyers, then it would be a seller's market. So it's really product dependent, supply and demand dependent, and that can change instantly. So it's very important that your realtor is able to diagnose that specifically for you. And then at the very bottom line, it says selling price and time.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah, it's my favorite line in the whole thing because I can come up with a number for my client's home that's completely different than the number that they want to sell at.
Or the appraisal.
Yeah. I've had 2 situations recently where I completely disagreed with the appraisal amount. And then my first offer came in, $40,000 higher, proving it wrong.
Yeah.
And I put in there specifically, I don't agree with the appraisal.
Yeah.
And my second one is I had a Mountie that wanted to list $75,000 above where I told him the home would sell and where the home did sell. Okay. But at the end of the day, you pick the price. Like, it is your home. It is your asset. You get to pick the price. As long as everybody's rowing in the same direction, nobody really gets upset. Understandably, the lower your house's price, the more people can afford it. The more if it's a good deal, maybe they'll look past things that you maybe haven't done to upgrade your house if that's even an issue. But doesn't mean that you have to list at any specific number. It's just nice to be in the ballpark. You want to make sure that you're on the playing field and move in a timely manner. The lower your home is, obviously, probably the quicker it's going to sell in most markets. But you also have to watch your bottom line. It's kind of a balance, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to sell the farm.
That's right. Yeah.
Or give the farm away.
That's right.
Whatever the phrase is.
Totally. So you want to sign your listing documents and you want to make sure that you're up to date with the market conditions. So if anything has changed in that time, you got to make sure from the moment you talk to your realtor and you start getting the home ready, is it the same market as when you're ready to list? Because sometimes there's a bit of a gap, okay? Because relocations doesn't necessarily get back to you right away. They're busy. They're busy relocating people. So then you got to make sure you're show ready to go, okay? Because realtors only control one piece of the pie, really. There's 3 pieces to the pie, the selling pie. We control the marketing. We make sure that it is marketed everywhere it can go. We understand the flow of traffic in the Lower Mainland. We understand the demographics that are moving into the areas. We want to make sure that we market effectively for your property to make sure you get the top dollar. We are completely tied to the dollar value of your house.
And safely.
And we're going to get into that. Which is a good point. So as a brief side note, our core values are trust, honesty, and protection. And we take protection very seriously, especially with the first responder crowd, because they spend their whole time protecting us.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we protect them, and we're going to get into that. But yeah, so we can control marketing the property and guiding you. We cannot control what happens inside the house. So you want to make sure that you're always show ready, that you're available to show. You can do your open houses. You want to make sure that the dishes are done. You clean and make your bed, all those kind of house tidying things. And we can't control the buyers. So buyers are going to offer what they're going to offer. They're going to view what they're going to view, or not view what they're not going to view. It's just the way it goes. So as long as everybody does their part, eventually it will sell. It's just a matter of time. So you got to make sure you ask your realtor to fill out those sheets. They're going to get that market report ready to go for you. And they're also going to need to supply you a copy of your title search. They're going to pull the title search. Now, Shelagh, this is a really important part of our job as a head administrator for me.
Yeah.
You're looking at titles all the time.
All the time.
And what do we notice mostly with the RCMP clients?
It has your job information on there. And it can be super vague, like government employee, or it can be really specific, like RCMP police officer.
Yeah, so we have to, by real estate law, provide title searches
to people who want to write.
So then you have to ask yourself, do you want them to know that you're an RCMP officer? Because the second you do that, then they might be like, oh, it's a transfer. Oh, they get money for a cleaner. Oh, they're desperate to sell. Oh, they need, it can go down a slippery slope really quickly. So in the Lower Mainland, we can be pretty anonymous if we want to be, because there's a lot of people here. In small crowds like Delaney, Shelagh, did anybody know that you guys were not an RCMP family?
No, they knew who I was immediately when I landed.
Yeah, so they knew about you before you got there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So there's no sneaking around there?
No.
So we get small towns in Ontario. Everybody knows who you are. It's a different kind of policing.
Yeah.
Here, they don't really have that. Like, you can definitely be anonymous. Chances are your neighbors know anyway, so people might find out. But you can usually keep it pretty locked down, especially if you redact your job.
Yeah, okay. Which we can do. So on the job title, we can leave your name on there and all the other information a buyer needs, but they don't need what your job is.
Yeah, and this is a good tip for closing documents. If you're at a lawyer's and you're signing title and they ask you for your job, you can ask the lawyer not to put your job description down on your title. And I don't think anybody knows that, but they do now. This is the point of the podcast, right? Yeah. Okay. So we want to make sure that the title search is there, that RCMP market report, and a copy of your listing agreement with the realtor showing that they signed off on the amount that your area dictates for their commission.
Yeah.
So in BC right now, today, it's 3.25. That could change in the future. In other parts of the country, there's 4%, there's 5%. I think we're the smallest in North America, like out of the United States and Canada. I think we have the lowest commission in the Fraser Valley, and I think it's because our houses are so darn expensive.
You bet.
Yeah, so it's all in proportion. No one is complaining, that's for sure. All right. So now we're going to move topics a little bit, and we're going to talk about what we do when the house is for sale. So this is the showing process that your house is for sale. Now, we work with a lot of RCMP clients, and we know how to tailor their experience to them because, let's be serious, they're not dealing with the world's most desirable clientele.
No.
It's never a good day.
No.
So they see all kinds of stuff, and I understand when they maybe don't trust the public. So I can empathize with them a little bit more, being a first responder wife.
Yeah.
Because my husband was on the road for a long time in Surrey.
Yeah.
Right?
So when we tell them, hey, we're going to have some strangers walk through your house on the weekend, they're like, but why though?
Yeah. How do you feel about your strangers opening your fridge, right?
Yes.
It happens.
Yeah.
And it is part of the experience. Even things like if a buyer sits down on your couch, like that might really weird you out if you're not a person who likes strangers in their space. But to us as realtors, that's the best sign. That's the best sign. If they sit down on the couch, they are moving in.
Yeah.
Okay. So
get comfortable. Put your feet up.
Exactly. Yeah. We get excited about that kind of stuff. But this doesn't mean, again, that we can't take steps to make sure that you feel really, really safe. So Shelagh, what's the number one safety thing that you like to tell clients when we're giving them the old safety chat?
Oh, uniforms away.
Okay, uniforms away. So let's do the headline test, shall we? Mounties uniform stolen from open house.
Yeah.
So now you got somebody out there with a Mountie outfit.
Yeah.
Outfit. Shouldn't say that.
Yeah. Uniform.
Yeah. So you've got now uniforms out. So this doesn't matter if you are a firefighter, a nurse, anybody in the medical field. corrections, border, anybody. If you have a very special uniform that gives you a certain
authority.
Yeah, you don't want that out in the public.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's really, really important. The second thing we talk to people about is calendars.
Oh, yes.
Okay, calendars to me is the biggest one. This isn't just a rule for my Mountie clients, it's for every client. Nobody ever talks about this, but do you really want your family calendar out in your house?
Jimmy soccer, 5:00.
Yeah. There's a lot of freaks out there.
Yep.
I don't want my kids' school pickup times.
Yeah, when I'm away.
When I'm away on vacation.
Exactly.
Shift work.
Yep.
Like anything like that. You don't want anything that might show somebody your life, okay? Because that's just not okay. Things that could give crimes of opportunity, like key fobs, small electronics. Theft is extremely rare, but we just have to make sure we have that conversation.
Yeah.
Checking,
if it's not out, not available, less likely to happen.
Totally, yeah. Crimes, windows being locked. And it's not necessarily on purpose, but say you got a realtor that's gone through your home and their client quickly went out the back door to check the backyard one more time.
Yeah.
They could have left it unlocked. It's really important at the end of a showing to make sure that you're locking up your house. And then, of course, the firearms conversation.
Yes.
Okay, so if you have a personal firearms, where is it? Can you lock it up? Is it away? Because it's just a good idea. If they see uniforms, they may think that you have firearms in the house. Okay. So we always provide our clients a long list of stuff. That's just a few things, but it's really important, especially if you're a realtor watching this, to have that safety conversation with your RCMP client, because you want them to be able to trust the process from start to finish, because having strangers in your home is a pretty uncomfortable thing.
So uniforms, calendars, memorabilia, awards, things like that, tuck it away.
Yeah, we always say to people, and some people love it.
Yes.
They're like, yeah, no, keep it up.
Yeah.
We want the pictures up. We want the retirement thing up on the wall. Like, I got an ERT guy that was like, let them come. And I'm just like, what? Like,
Yeah. And then the other Mounties see it and they're like, I'll buy that one.
Yes. Anytime that I see Mountie stuff in a house with my Mountie clients, I'm like, this is the one we want.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that's just the way it goes. All right. So we make sure that we tailor our process to the client. And I think it's very important for all realtors to tailor for the specific clientele. I'm a very big know your audience kind of girl. Okay. So this is where it comes from. So then let's talk about posting online, Sheila.
Be careful.
Be careful posting online. Of course, you want to show the amazing photos of your home, but what do people do that kind of give, chop our legs off when we're trying to negotiate?
Sometimes, like, you might be transferring for just a regular promotion or something else, but sometimes it's not always a great thing. It could be a compassionate transfer where a family member is sick and you post online, and then Uncle Bob comments going, "Oh, sorry that you guys have to move because of XYZ. Hope your home sells quick." Yeah.
Like, it's just anytime anybody is disclosing motivation for selling, or they start asking you, oh, where are you heading? Have you bought yet? Anything like that. People talk. And again, if you're in a small community, there's nothing you can do. Yes. Everybody knows.
Everybody knows anyways. Yeah. So then at that point, you're like, tell all of your friends.
Yes,
bring them over.
Yeah, exactly. But in larger communities, if you're in Ontario, if you're in any of the big cities in Alberta or anything like that if you're outside of obviously the municipal police forces, or if you are a municipal police force officer there, just be careful with discussing motivation for selling. It'll chop our legs off when we're trying to negotiate for you.
Yeah.
And then if your home doesn't sell after a period of 30 days, okay, we have to submit another report to the RCMP explaining how many showings there were, how many sales were in the area, because they want to see kind of what's going on. That's usually when we have the little price reduction talk.
Yeah, if any offers were received.
Correct.
All the details.
Yeah. And sometimes, we just had one recently where we had an offer on a home and the cooperating agent did not have their client pre-approved. So even though our client is doing everything they can to sell, we can't always rely on the actions of other realtors.
Yeah. Can't control the other end.
I always joke that they're not all created equally, but that was a really frustrating situation. So sometimes your realtor, like I did, wrote a letter, to whom it may concern. Look, these guys are doing everything they can to sell. It's going to sell. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's important for people to know that they are doing everything that they can.
Yeah.
Right. And then once you get that beautiful offer, and you're ready, it does have to go into relocation. So relocation wants all the paperwork to show that the offers come in. They're going to watch the timeline, and they're going to follow up to make sure that if it is sold, they collect the paperwork for that. And that's because they're the ones funding They're the ones funding the commission. They got to know. So
yeah, and you can't go to buy anything until all those documents are in.
And that's a good point. So we're gonna now shift a little bit, and we're gonna talk about the buying process.
Ooh.
Okay. So a lot of people, when they find out that they are selling, and here's a pro tip, they go into something called transfer mode. Yeah, exactly. Everyone always laughs when I say transfer mode because they know. They're just like, I don't really care about work. Like, I don't care. Like,
yeah, I'm leaving.
I'm transferring.
Yeah.
So and then a lot of wives, and a lot of partners and stuff, they decide, that's it. I'm gonna quit my job.
Yeah.
Don't quit your job.
Not yet.
Don't quit your job. You need your job to qualify for financing on your next home. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be in this community anymore. I quit.
Yeah.
Don't quit your job. You have to have your income. Okay.
Yeah.
And you got to start talking to that realtor during your sale process. And the realtor you want to talk to is in the next location you're going to. Okay. So I often get reached out to on the island or other parts of the country. Ontario, a lot of times we've had them in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Where they call me and they say, Kristy, we're coming to the Lower Mainland. We would like you to be our realtor.
Yeah.
Or up in Delaney.
Yeah.
Okay? And the cool thing is I say, great. What's the status of your house sale and when are you coming? When are you coming? Because I have to dedicate an entire week to you. And I have to like clear my schedule. Now I'm on a team. I can do that. When I wasn't on a team and it was just you and I, it was a little bit harder.
A little hectic.
But as a team lead, I've got staff in place that I can literally dedicate every waking moment in a week to making sure that if I can't be there, Sheila can be there. If Sheila can't be there, Ashley can be there. Another staff member can be there. We'll always make sure that you are covered.
Yeah.
It's very important because you have to pick a house on your house hunting trip.
Yeah.
If you don't, well, we could talk about that. But let's just for purposes in this conversation, we got to get you out house hunting.
Yeah. Because when we came down, we got told, okay, your house hunting trip is approved. You have 1 week to find a house.
Yeah. And it's really not a week to find a house. If you think
No.
about it, you've got 2 days.
Yes.
So your first day is to view, second day is to view and decide. And then you've got to have your days for subjects. So
Yeah.
financing takes 5 days at the bank, inspection, making sure all the documents are ordered from the city if the listing agent hasn't provided them for you.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we got enough time to do it.
Yeah.
So every single minute counts. So when your home is listed for sale or you are heading to the next location when you are buying, you got to start talking to that realtor. You got to make sure that they are familiar with the RCMP process or they can dedicate their entire week to you. Okay, because it's no joke.
Yeah. You don't want to be calling around for an agent when you're flying in.
Yes.
Do it ahead of time.
So what we do is we take a list of our numbers and we ask people what they're looking for. We really get into their heads. We ask everything like, do you have any recreation vehicles? Do you need, like we get dog guys, do you need a kennel space?
Yeah. Do you need a certain shape lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything. We try to really get in their heads so that when we have them land, this is what I did with Sheila. When we had Sheila land, when I went to pick her up at the hotel, I was like, get in. We had 10 houses.
Yeah.
10 houses lined up ready to see that I knew that they were all available. And I said, what are your dates? What dates can it be? There are questions that you can ask ahead of time because maybe you've sold your home and you know the dates of your sale. You want to try to line those up because a lot of moves, especially if it's a retirement move, it'll only get you from door to door.
Yeah.
There is no in-between door. I believe there is an in-between door if it's not a retirement move.
You still have to prove that you did everything possible to not have that happen.
Yeah, understandable. And why would you want to move twice?
More bills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the RCMP are funding or the relocation process is funding. So it's really important. You got to make sure that the realtor that you're getting on the other end can dedicate their week. They can understand the area. They got to know the zones, the crime zones. If I'm getting someone that's working in Surrey, I said, okay, well, how do we feel about working in Surrey and living in Surrey? Like, do you want to arrest your neighbor? No, I'm just, but it's just that kind of conversation. Or do we want to be close by? How comfortable are we with the commute? Because the Fraser Valley is a big place. Everything is sandwiched up next to each other, right?
Yeah. That was a huge consideration when we were house hunting with you because we were transferring in. We weren't quite nailed down on the area. We had a rough idea, but we knew my husband was going to have to commute to the airport.
Right.
Every day. So anytime we were out looking at a house, if we were going further east, you're like, okay, now remember, this is going to be X number of minutes further than the last house.
Yeah. And the airport's not close.
No.
It's just not close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, or if you want to live near the airport, the homes are very expensive.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Balancing act.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the triangle of death in real estate. You get the price of the home, the area and condition, Oh, sorry, the price of the home, the area, or the condition.
Yeah.
Like, it's
now,
very
you
hard.
showed us, I think we had 10 homes at least the first day. What's the most amount of homes you've seen in a day on a house hunting trip?
The most was 14.
Oh my gosh.
So it's 1 per 30 minutes. You break for lunch. Then you do every half an hour until 5 o'clock. You break for dinner, and then you do 3 more.
Okay.
I've also had 10 homes lined up, and I walked my clients into the first one. They say, yep, this is good. Cancel the rest of the tour. We'll buy it.
Wow.
So that happens too. And I mean, I'm not kidding you when I tell you that these tours and the amount of time that we spend with clients to get them prepared, it's like weeks.
Yes.
Okay. It's like weeks of contact and being like, no, that one's gone now. How about this one?
Yeah.
That one's gone now. How about this one? This is what the prices are doing.
Yeah.
So after we assembled 10 houses and they bought the first one they saw, it was a little bittersweet because I was like, I want to see the rest of them.
Yeah. I put so much work into this, but
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. And the quickest I ever got somebody into a house on a house hunting trip was I met somebody at a Starbucks in Langley, and I had them into a house in Abbotsford within an hour, and we had it accepted cash in the next hour. So it was 2 hours
Wow.
from when I met them.
That's efficient.
It is efficient, and they're still good clients of mine today, and I love them to pieces.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. Kind of a cool job. But enough about me. Let's get back to the process. So you want to make sure that the person is doing all the things that we were just talking about. So they want to make sure they're highly organized. They've got coverage. Like, what if they got sick? Is there someone else on their team that can take them out? Doing all their homework ahead of time. Making sure that they know what you were looking for when you're house hunting. They have to be up to date on everything. Make sure that they've got some resources as well, like inspectors and lawyers and that kind of stuff. We got to talk to people in the area, got to do the homework, go visit your detachment and pack properly for your trip.
Yeah.
So it rains a lot here.
A bunch.
So we have to make sure that we got shoes that can slip on and off really easily. If you're wearing, you wear gum boots. They don't have laces.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you're going somewhere that's cold or you're going somewhere that's really hot, make sure you dress accordingly and make sure that your shoes are easy to slip on and off. Okay, and if you're coming with kids, let your realtor know because you may have to plan extra breaks for them. Plan snack time, plan, a nearby park that they can blow off some steam because it'd be very hard on children.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So say you're going to go house hunting. The biggest tip I can give you, don't fall in love with anything before your house is sold.
But why?
I know. Don't fall in love with anything before your house is sold. If you find something on the market and you're like, that's the one we wanted, you don't know what it smells like on the inside. You don't really know that.
That's true.
Right? Everybody falls in love with something online. They're like, that was the one we wanted. Our house hasn't sold. And this is FOMO, like fear of missing out on the house.
Oh, I totally feel that.
But you don't know.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you something right now. Realtors make it look good online.
You bet.
Right? We're going to take the pictures to make sure that the room looks really big.
You walk in, you're like, this won't even fit my desk.
You can't smell the photos.
No.
Sometimes you can. But for the most part, you can't. You don't know if it's located next to a train track. Okay. You just don't know until you actually go view it. So try not to get too emotionally invested in the homes that you haven't seen yet. If they go before you get there, and I didn't believe it when my realtor told me it, but there will always be another house. Right?
Yep.
I didn't. When someone told that to me, I was like, what do you know?
Yeah. Well, but I wanted that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not the truth. Okay. There's always going to be another house. Okay. So you get your accepted offer, your house sells firm, you've seen the deposit check, everything is good, and you're off for your house hunting trip. You have to make sure that you choose inspectors and lawyers from their list. Okay. Now, this can be a bit of an issue, especially in the Lower Mainland. Okay. So our biggest problem is with lawyer fees.
Yeah.
Now, after COVID, I was no longer comfortable recommending a notary. There were too many things that were going weird during COVID, and there were too many situations where things could fall apart. So lawyers really became key, and now I won't go back.
Yeah. And this was because only lawyers could give legal advice.
That's
when
right.
all that stuff was going sideways.
Yeah. So notaries, they can literally, that's all they do. They notarize. They see signatures like, oh yeah, you signed it. Okay. A lawyer is there to advise you in the event that something goes wrong. Now, I don't want to scare anybody because 99.9% of the time it works out.
Yeah.
I unfortunately recently had an experience where the 0.01 or 001 or whatever. Yeah. So I went through one of those. Okay. Where things were not going to work out. And it was very important that the clients had a lawyer and that lawyer did litigation. Okay. Didn't have to go down that road, thankfully, but it got as close as you possibly can get to that.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable. So the problem that we are facing in the Lower Mainland with the lawyers is that their fees are $1,200, $1,300, which we don't blame them. That's what they charge. Okay?
Yeah.
In my opinion, they're worth every penny. But relocation from the RCMP, when they're distributing the funds, the amount of money that is compensated for lawyers it's not nearly as high enough. It's like $600.
Yeah. They'll give you a certain amount towards it, and it used to cover it all and no problem. And now it's just that amount has stayed the same while the cost of the service has gone up. And then you kind of have to decide, well, do I find someone cheaper to just keep it out of the amount, or do I pay the difference for the service?
Yeah, and like, do you really want to cheap out on a lawyer?
Well,
No.
no.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Okay? So here's the thing. You get compensated a lot in your transfer. Okay? You get compensated a lot, and you're used to getting everything paid for you. If there's one time that I could tell you to just like politely get off your wallet, it's with the lawyer.
Yeah.
Like, cough up the extra $600.
Even if you have to like move funds around, like, okay, say you don't use the funds to hire that cleaner and you're going to have to do it yourself.
That's right.
Put it on the lawyer.
Yeah, put it on the lawyer. Make sure that the lawyer fee is covered. Because again, that's just our advice. That's just the way that we work. Maybe
Just our experience.
maybe where you're going, that $600 will cover it, but
Yeah.
it just doesn't do it here. And we're no longer, I think the list for relocation lawyers here has dwindled to like one person.
Yeah.
So you got one guy that's willing to work for $600 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you want him? I don't know. He's probably great. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's just one of those things that you have to be careful about. Definitely have to be careful about. So, yeah. So it's just very important. It's very good to know. And when you're house hunting, the other big key thing to know is about the deposit structures, where you're going.
Huge.
And what's going on with appliances. So in Ontario, it's my understanding that your appliances move with you.
And sometimes they can be rented. Like the furnace could be rented.
Oh yeah. You could rent the propane or the furnace, one of the two.
There's utilities that in BC are just considered like
No, it's a hot water tank.
hot water tank.
It's a hot water tank. That's what it is.
Rent it.
It's weird because we don't have that here.
No.
But you rent your hot water tank or you lease your hot water tank.
Yeah.
So it doesn't come with you.
So you have to have that in the negotiations about whether you're assuming that contract.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's insane. And then also like your fridge. Is your fridge coming with you, or are you selling it there? And then we're going to get into pack load move days in a moment here when we talk about the actual moving process. But you got to know what is going on in the transaction that you're buying.
Yes.
My biggest thing is that people do not understand the deposit that is needed. Okay. So when you're buying a home, when you're ready to go, you've done your due diligence on the property, you need to supply a deposit. In the Lower Mainland, that happens after you've done your due diligence. And that amount is 3 to 5% of the asking price.
Yes.
So I want you to think about how much homes are here. It's a lot of money. Like $25,000, $80,000, $100,000. If you're competing, maybe you're going to chuck down more.
Yeah.
Now,
And this is not your down payment. This is, I have to have this in a bank draft.
yeah.
Before I go back home, like at the end of my house hunting trip, I'm handing that to my realtor.
Yeah, so if you bank with Tangerine or your RSPs you're using maybe or something like that, it can take a little while to get that deposit money out. So if you're in a quick moving market where you need that deposit in 3 days, you got to get it out now.
That's what we had to do for ours. You gave us a heads up and you were like, hey, if you're using this, it's going to take up to 3 business days to take it out. So we started it early.
Yes, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Yeah. So basically, some areas in Canada, you need $500 or $1,000 as a deposit, or like really, really small amounts of money. Like if you tried to pull that in British Columbia, especially the Lower Mainland, like no one's gonna talk to you.
No.
Yeah. So it's just
They think you're a charlatan.
Yeah. You have to be very careful with your deposit structure. So make sure wherever you're going, and realtors, if you're listening in other parts of the country, make sure it's really, really clear to the people that are moving into your communities what's needed and when.
Yes.
Okay? What's needed and when. Sometimes I know in other, like back east, you need it up front, for example, to write the contract.
Yes.
So just little things like that. So we've talked about the selling process. We've talked about safety, which I love. We've talked about the buying process.
You bet.
Now we're going to talk about what it actually is like to move. Now this is Sheila territory because I've never actually moved. So Sheila, you've moved 3 times?
First move was from Kelowna to Inuvik, Northwest Territories.
Right.
So that was the depot move. But because we were moving to a province where they paid, like that end of the detachment would pay, because normally depot moves aren't covered.
Right.
So that was paid. So we had that move, Inuvik to Delaunay, and then Delaunay to Surrey. And then I've moved a few more times since then, not covered by the RCMP. Yeah.
It's expensive, isn't it?
It sure is. Oh my goodness. The packing alone. I'm like, I really miss when someone packed for me.
Totally. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's, that can be a challenge for people. So there are days that we talk about, and it's pack day, load day, move day. And we're going to kind of break those down just really lightly.
Yeah.
Again, if any of this has changed in the RCMP transfer manual or anything like that, like we are not saying that any of this is set in stone, because we don't represent those entities. We're just talking from experience.
And
okay?
policy changes.
Policy changes all the time. So pack day.
Oh my word.
Okay, so what is that like? You got a team that shows up, and what happens?
It's chaos. Basically, anything that is in your home, it's going to get packed unless you tell them not to, and you section it away with a big sign that says, don't touch this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've seen horror stories where people have had their wet laundry in the washer packed up.
Correct.
And then it gets like mold all over it.
Yeah.
I've seen like kids' plastic cups with goldfish crackers with like a newspaper around it.
Yep.
And then the biggest horror story was the wedding photo album in the barbecue.
Yeah.
And then the barbecue went outside and they couldn't find their wedding album. And then they finally opened it up after the winter. And then they found their ruined wedding photos.
Yes.
So this is one of those things where I guess you have to be prepared ahead of time for these packers to come in, because they're just going to pack.
Yeah.
Right?
It's about speed, not necessarily accuracy. So it's pack as much as possible, as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes just common sense out the window.
Yeah. It's just whatever's nearby, it's going in that box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. And then so they pack you up, which is kind of insane, I'm sure.
It's crazy to watch.
I bet.
It's like a tornado in reverse.
Okay.
Like they're putting everything in a box.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the next day is load day.
Yes.
So you got a big truck that comes, or in your case, I think there was planes involved because you were in a flying community.
We were in a flying community, and so we had a truck come that would take our stuff to the airplane, load it on the airplane, and the airplane was going to meet us there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's quite extensive.
You bet.
Around here, we just see like the big trucks come, like
Yeah.
the big ones, because they cart people across Canada
Yes.
ultimately. So you've got this big truck that pulls up, and it's a moving company, and they're starting to load your boxes and your items in. And it's my understanding that there's something called like a bingo sheet.
The bingo sheet's at the receiving end, but you get stickers.
Okay.
So there is a number sticker, and sometimes they're white, sometimes they're red, but they're stickers, and they go like up in little numbers, and every single item you can imagine, if it's going on that truck, it's getting a sticker.
Okay.
You find these years later.
I like that. I think
Yeah.
I've actually only seen one ever at your house on the bottom of a dining room chair.
You bet.
Yeah. So I was like, there's a sticker.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. So people who've moved a few times, you get different colored stickers on the same item. And then you're like, wait, which am I receiving right now? Because there's 3 on there.
I can't even comprehend that. That's definitely different.
So it just has like a record. So little tiny descriptions go on the sheet. So it's like sticker number this, kitchen box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are there things like, this is always the conversation that's out there, what will they not move for you?
They have a list of things where it's like, hey, we're not going to touch this. We can't take it. Sometimes it's like recreational vehicles, or if they're taking a vehicle, you can't load it up with stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because people will say, oh, well, the car's going to get towed away and brought with me so I can put my stuff in there. No. Like maybe some spare tires, that's it. Liquids, also, like alcohol, bottles of wine, really breakable items.
So for my Okanagan folks,
I know.
so you got to drink all the, no, I'm just kidding. Drink all the wine.
Have a big moving party.
Yeah, big moving party. Okay,
Yeah.
so but you can move that yourself or hire a private mover.
Well, here's the thing. It's because a lot of these, like, they're not in temperature controlled vans. So whatever you're putting in the box, if there's a risk of it freezing and exploding, that's why they won't cover it.
And you're in a very cold destination.
You bet I was. So a little bit of wiggle room around it, because you have to watch your weight with these twos.
Right.
Like, you're only allowed to move a certain amount of stuff.
Okay.
And we were going to the Arctic. So we were like, oh, let's bring a whole bunch of canned goods as much as we can. So stay under that. But for the alcohol or whatever we were allowed to bring that we were worried was going to freeze, we triple bagged it and put it in one of those action packer boxes and then taped it shut.
Okay, so like it's not going anywhere. It's not,
It's
gonna
not going
damage
anywhere. And they mark down packed by owner.
Okay.
So that they wouldn't be liable for anything happening to that box.
Okay, so I understand there's like liquids and house plants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the move-in day, when they move you in,
Yeah.
what happens on that day?
They unpack your stuff. So they have to unpack your kitchen. So they have to unpack your kitchen and set up your bed. So if there's pieces missing, that's the day you find out. So they're setting everything up. They're putting stuff away. And that's when you're trying to intercept it because you're like, okay, this has been touched by many hands. Now I want to throw this in the washing
Do they
machine.
touch your underwear? I have to ask. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Is that weird?
I started packing that myself with all of my like valuables. I'm like, I'm just gonna tuck this in my suitcase,
Right?
So they don't have to.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah. Otherwise, they're in there. They're armfuls.
They don't care.
They don't care.
Okay, cool.
They're gonna pack everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on that day, what would be your like pro tip for that bingo sheet and like making sure that because they want to obviously unpack you and get out of there. So what do you do?
Just take your time and make sure that if you are checking off a number or if something is damaged, you're marking it down on that sheet.
Right.
Because basically you're supposed to, at the end of the day, you're supposed to sign off on the sheet that you've received everything and hand it back. But if you're missing items or if those items are damaged, you have to note it immediately or not sign that form right away.
Okay, so basically anything that comes off the truck, you make sure it's there and you make sure that it is in proper working order, basically.
Because say if you've moved 3,000 miles and your bed frame is missing all the screws, now you can't assemble it. Well, do you have to replace the screws or are they no longer available now? You need a new bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's my understanding that you had a very large mattress on one of your moves.
On one of our moves, we had a memory foam. I loved it so much. My husband hated it.
They're still married, by the way. After all of these moves, they're still married.
Yeah. Maybe because the first 3 they got packed for us. We'll go with that. But the memory foam mattress, it was a king size and it almost didn't fit on the plane that was moving us to the next little town.
Okay.
So they folded it in half, duct tape it, and shoved it on the plane. Yeah.
Memories.
Yeah. You never forget having to call and be like, how big is the inside of your plane? It needs to fit my bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are, again, I just from the lower mainland here, never been through anything like that.
Yeah.
So this is why this is really important. When I'm working with RCMP officers, like I'm born and raised here. I can speak to the communities in the Fraser Valley. Like I can tell you everything that's going on around here because I've been there. Been a realtor for a long time. There's very few things that could get past me in a contract. And I am ironclad on my safety. Sheila has the practical knowledge for the people who are moving into the community and what they're going through on the other end. Mm-hmm. So it's just like we've got like a pretty good dynamic going on.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Couple things to really make note of legally. When you are signing closing documents, if you are moving provinces, you have to hire a lawyer in the province that the transaction is taking place in. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you're selling in Ontario and you're buying in British Columbia, you have to sign with a lawyer in Ontario for the house sale in Ontario. You have to sign in British Columbia for the house sale in British Columbia. Okay. So that's very important. During COVID, they allowed video.
Yes.
And I believe that they're moving away from that.
Yeah.
So I think you need to either tell them you have COVID. No, I actually know that is a workaround.
Yeah.
But you have to discuss with the lawyer upfront how you're going to do that. Because if you have to move, like, are you supposed to go back and sign it? Like, that's not a car trip. That's not like a day's worth of driving. That's that's a plane trip.
So you have to have those people talk to each other on either end and send paperwork back, and that might mean that you're paying for 2 lawyers or 2 notaries or something.
Yeah, and that's just something that you want to make sure you do properly. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of clients. We had them today. They dropped off their keys and they're like, "We're out of here."
Yeah.
Okay, so peaced out on us and they're gone. Which sucks. I hate it when they leave the community. There's such good people in the community. I hate it when they leave. So when they're leaving town. And if there's any kind of gap between when they leave the house and the new buyers are taking possession, if we get those keys, we always say to them, hey, listen, what's your insurance policy in between that time?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to know what the insurance policy is on the house because some insurance policies are void.
Like 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah. They're like, if someone's not checking on it or if they deem it as vacant when it hasn't been updated on the policy.
That's right.
No coverage.
Yeah. So you just wouldn't be covered, which is insane.
Yeah.
Okay. So have to make sure that you understand your insurance policy. Mm-hmm. And then if you're relocating with personal firearms, we always tell people, listen, make sure you fill out the documents so that
the permits
so that you can transport And you can register your firearm. And I'm not talking like the RCMP collection. I'm talking like your own personal collection. Okay.
Yeah.
And just like anything, have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. Transfers don't have to be stressful. House selling doesn't have to be stressful. Find out what you need from your realtor, whether it's more communication, experience, anything like that. Make sure they understand the process. Get them to watch this podcast if they need to. Get them to call me. I will help them. I talk to realtors all across Canada when they talk to me about having their Mounties come into their community and what they want to do to make that experience special for them. We try to make sure that we handle as much business as we can from them. We do support that community. They support us. And yeah, so just like anything, guys, have fun with your transfer. Good luck with your transfer. And thank you for keeping our community safe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Have a good day.
Bye.